Hello fellow readers and readresses, it is time to discuss the books that are gonna come out in 2024, which I am the most excited for. Can you believe that it's time for this already? I feel like I filmed my most anticipated releases for 2023 like a month ago or something. Let me tell you, the older you get, the faster the time seems to fly. Anyway, this video will feature 11 books, almost all of which are fantasy and sci-fi. And the almost here is a lie because looking at this list, it is all fantasy and sci-fi. Now, before we go any further, I would like to make it clear that I make no commitment to read any of these books in 2024. I am an adult, life gets in the way, all kinds of things can happen. But I am looking forward to those books the most, and I will make sure to get them and read them eventually. That out of the way, let's look at the list. I was initially going to do this in a hype order from least to most anticipated, but there is really only one book that I can rank as a definite number one, and that one comes out at the end of the year, so I think we're just gonna go with the chronological order. Starting with January. I have only one book for this month, and it comes out on January 23rd. The book is Into the Sunken City, and it's by the author Dinesh Thiru. I hope I'm pronouncing this name correctly. Here I'm about to launch into a tirade that has nothing to do with the book, so if you'd like to skip it, there is a timestamp in the video description. I was gonna remove it during editing, but I think it's more authentic this way, so I'm leaving it in my apologies. And while we're on the subject, I would like to address a comment left by a gentleman under one of my videos a few days ago. Unfortunately, he already deleted the comment before I could respond, but I have the email notification so I can still read it. You say sorry if I'm mispronouncing the name, but you just show how hateful you are every time you do it. You have one job here and can't do it properly. Now, there are a few things that I would like to say here on the off chance that this gentleman is watching this video, but also for the rest of you who might be harboring similar feelings on this topic. Number one, you do realize we all come from different places, right? I couldn't possibly know how to pronounce every single name out there, especially the ones I've never seen before. My natural instinct to pronounce things comes from my mother tongue, which is Bulgarian, and let me tell you, that instinct is not conducive to any non-Slavic language. And therefore, I'm gonna make mistakes. That's why I put pictures and titles on the screen so you don't have to rely solely on my pronunciation. To be perfectly honest with you, I'm not even sure that I'm pronouncing the word pronunciation properly. I'm just trying my best here. Secondly, you have one job here. I have no job here, sir. This is not a job. This is a hobby. I have made exactly $122.56 since I started this booktube channel 2 years ago, and after making 100 videos. This amount of money is not even enough to pay for the electricity it takes to film and edit these videos, much less for internet, the books themselves, or my time. I do this because I want to, because I like talking to people about books, and sadly, I don't have people here who I can talk to about books regularly. Frankly, I'm a little lonely. That's why I'm here. And lastly, if I had one job here, it wouldn't be to properly pronounce authors' names. It would be to talk about the contents and merits of certain books, which I already do, to the best of my abilities. So when it comes to mispronouncing names, it's gonna happen, okay? But I want you to know that I mean absolutely no disrespect by it. Now, if even after knowing that you still feel disappointed and upset, feel free to leave a dislike, a comment. If it doesn't contain terrible profanity, I will not remove it. I have not deleted a comment in my life. I am happy to see you here as long as you're happy to be here. And if you're not, there are 1,000 other people that are prettier, funnier, better educated, more eloquent, you name it. I am not running for mayor here. I'm not trying to win your vote. I'm here either way, and I hope to see you, but you owe me nothing and you don't have to watch. Sorry for this salty detour. I just remembered this and I guess I still felt a way about it. Moving on. Into the Sunken City by Dinesh Thiru. This is supposed to be a young adult fantasy with a lot of adventure in it, with some pirates in it. And when I first heard that, I thought, it doesn't sound like my thing. But then I read the synopsis and I was blown away. It kind of gave me Indiana Jones / Tomb Raider vibes, and maybe I'm completely off base here, but that's the impression it left in me. And I'm gonna read a little bit of the synopsis to you. In the snowy sinking city of Cocorino, Arizona, the days are long, the money is tight, and the rain never stops. For Jen Hader, this is nothing new. Ever since her father died in a diving accident, she's barely made ends meet for her and her younger sister Thara. Enter Billy, a drifter who offers Jen and Thara the score of a lifetime, a massive stash of gold hidden in the sunken ruins of Las Vegas. And there is more from the synopsis synopsis, but that's all I read, and it was perfectly enough for me to get me hyped for this book. I just love the idea of having the whole world kind of drowned, or at least the US from what I understand, and having people dive into these forgotten sunken cities. I just love this type of adventure, and especially in this fantastical / science fiction environment, I think it's gonna be great, and I'm super excited for it. What's even better about this book is that it appears so far to be a standalone, so it can be a nice palate cleanser if you're looking to take a break from reading series like I sometimes do. Again, it comes out on 23rd of January. The second book on my list is The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. This is gonna be an adult fantasy / mystery thriller / science fiction mash of all of those things, and it's gonna be the first book in the Shadow of the Leviathan series. If the name Robert Jackson Bennett appears familiar to you, it's because he's the author of The Foundry Site, which is a rather popular fantasy series that I wanted to read for the longest time and still haven't because I couldn't find the book physically. But what I've heard about him from a lot of people is that he writes some of the nicest characters and some of the most original fantasy, so that got me very curious for one, but also this synopsis, I'm not gonna read it for you because it's too long, but I'm gonna try to summarize it. We have a lady detective who refuses to leave her house and wears a blindfold at all times for some reason. She has this young assistant who hides secrets of his own. They have kind of Sherlock Holmes Watson dynamic between the two of them and work together to solve a murder or some other mystery or something like that. I forgot exactly what it was, but it sounded so interesting. I highly advise you to go check out the synopsis if you haven't. This book sounds really curious to me, and I think it's gonna be one of the few that I'm gonna try to read as soon as it comes out, which according to the information that's available online is gonna happen on February 6th. Book number 3 on my list is The Warm Hands of Ghosts by Katherine Arden. This is supposed to be an adult paranormal historical fantasy and is set between the years 1917 and 1918. It follows a brother and a sister that are in a war, him as a soldier and her as a field nurse, and I think he disappears and she gets injured and some other things ensue. Again, I'm trying not to spoil anything, which is why I'm not gonna read anything from the synopsis, and the premise of this book sounds super interesting, and in combination of who the author is made my decision to put this book on this list. Katherine Arden is actually the author of The Bear and the Nightingale and this whole trilogy. I think it's called Winter Night Trilogy. I read The Bear and the Nightingale a few years ago and I really loved it. By the way, if you're looking for the quintessential winter book, I think that's the perfect read. It's very heavy on Russian folklore and it's really cozy. It tells a very beautiful story, a little bit scary, a little bit gruesome. I really enjoyed it. And imagining this story written by this author with her writing style, I think it's going to be very interesting to read. And the book is supposed to come out on February 13th. The next book on my list is a very popular one because the author is very popular. The book is Empire of the Damned, which is the second book in the Empire of the Vampire series and is by the author Kristoff. I read the first book in the series 2 years ago, I think, and I quite liked it. I wouldn't call it a masterpiece necessarily, but it was one of the best, if not the best, vampire books that I've ever read, considering the fact that I haven't read that many. But I remember loving the world and the premise in general, and given that my main issue was mostly with the pacing, I think this could be a great one. Again, I'm super curious to know how the story is going to continue, how our main character got to where he is, and what he's going to do next, and what happened with some other characters. Overall, I'm quite hyped for this book, and given that Kristoff's writing is quite easy to read, I think it's gonna go quickly, even though it's probably gonna be a chunker. The book is supposed to be an adult paranormal fantasy / horror and is supposed to come out on February 28th. Book number 5 on my list is Sunbringer by Hannah Kaner. This is an adult fantasy and the second book in the Fallen God series. I read the first book, God Killer, last year, pretty much right after it had come out, and I quite enjoyed it. I don't think it was a masterpiece, but I had a good time with it. I have a full review. You can watch it over here if you want to. And book 1 was good enough to make me want to continue with the series. It was adventurous, it was fun, the world was mysterious, the characters were lovely, and I think the magic system was quite original. I also absolutely adore the covers of these books. I think they're beautiful, just gorgeous, and match perfectly the atmosphere of this story. Speaking of the story, it is set in a world where there are multiple gods which are being created by people's belief in them. You can have a big god of the ocean or a small god god of a certain stream, and we follow 4 characters which travel together. We have a god killer, an ex-soldier, a little girl, and a small god that's attached to her for some reason, and that is the god of white lies. In book 1, they travel together to an abandoned city where years ago there was a battle between gods and humans, and now it's forbidden to go there. As I already mentioned, there was a lot of mystery, a lot of adventure. I quite enjoyed it. I have no idea what the premise of the second book is, but I will happily read it anyway. And that book comes out on March 12th. Okay, the next book on my list I know pretty much nothing about, and the reason why I'm putting it here is because number 1, I love the title, and number 2, I really trust the author. The title of the book is The Book That Broke the World, and the author is Mark Lawrence. This is book number 2 in the library trilogy, the first book being The Book That Wouldn't Burn. If you make a drinking game and drink every time I say book, you'd be hammered within the next 2 minutes. So as I mentioned already, I have absolutely no idea what the premise of this book is. I didn't read book 1, though I really wanted to. I just didn't have the opportunity last year, but I am planning to read both. And why that is because I love Mark Lawrence's writing. I love the Book of the Ancestor trilogy, which I read a few years ago and then reread and still loved. I think he writes some of the most interesting characters and some of the most intricate plots set in some of the most mysterious worlds. I still have 2 more books to read from the Book of Ice, which is the second trilogy after the Book of the Ancestor, and once I do that, I'm gonna move on to this one. I suppose it's set in the same world, but I'm not 100% sure. Either way, as I said, I trust the author, and I would be very happy and curious to see what he wrote here. By the way, the book is supposed to be an adult fantasy and is gonna come out on April 9th. Oh, the next book I am super hyped for. This is probably my second most anticipated book for this entire year, and the book is Foul Days by the author Genoveva Dimitrova. This is supposed to be an adult fantasy and the first book in the Witch's Compendium of Monsters. Why I'm so excited about this book is because it is written by a Bulgarian author who is from this city. She no longer lives here, she lives in Scotland right now, but she is from this city and she's also an archaeologist. The second reason why I'm so excited about this book is because it's Slavic fantasy, which means that it's gonna be based on our myths and legends, and that is not something that I've seen pretty much anywhere. And being that the book is being published by Tor, if I'm not mistaken, which is one of the biggest fantasy publishers out there, I am so happy and a little bit proud because I don't get to see many Bulgarian things being popular out there, especially in the realm of fantasy. I am super curious to see how I'm gonna react to this type of fantasy, and I also love this cover. I think it's gorgeous. The book is supposed to come out on June 25th. Book number 8 on my list is The Daughter's War by Kristoff Buehlman. This is an adult epic fantasy and book number 0 in the Black Tongue series, which means it's the prequel to the Black Tongue series. I read The Black Tongue Thief, which is the first and only so far book in the Black Tongue series in 2022, I believe, and I loved it. I think the writing style of this author is fantastic. He has such an amazing sense of humor and such a great skill to create amazing, very magical worlds and super interesting characters. I have 2 reviews of this book, one spoilery and one spoiler-free. You can watch them both. I'm gonna try to link them over here. I had such a great time with this book. It got me so hyped. I've been waiting for a continuation to this story for the longest time, and I am definitely reading this in 2024 if no unforeseen circumstances occur. I'm telling you, if you're looking for gruesome fantasy set in a very interesting world and told with an amazing sense of humor, the Black Tongue series is definitely for you. And I do hope I love this book as much as I love the first one. The Mercy of Gods by James S.A. Corey, book number 9 on my list. This is an adult science fiction space opera and the first book in The Captive's War. I have zero idea about the premise of this book, let me tell you, but I am currently reading the Expanse series by this author duo, and I absolutely love their books. I love their writing style, I love their characters, I love their plots. I trust them fully, so whatever they write, I'm gonna read. And also, look at this cover. This is so gorgeous. I love it. It gets me so excited to read whatever is behind this cover. Just looking at it, I'm itching to read this book. It comes out on August 6th. Book number 10 on my list is The Failures by Benjamin Lyer. This is the first book in the Wonderland series, and it's gonna be an adult mix of apocalyptic futuristic science fiction and epic fantasy. And the premise of the book sounded so cool to me, I couldn't even begin to explain. I'm gonna read you a little bit of the synopsis because I think you need to hear this. The vast machine-like expanse of the Wonderlands, crafted by long-lost gods, is teetering on the brink of eternal darkness. Amidst this decaying behemoth, a diverse group of heroes driven by prophetic dreams embark on a perilous journey. Their mission? To mend their crumbling world or witness its irrevocable end. It's a tale of second chances and redemption, for these heroes have once tried and failed to salvage their home. Now they're presented with another shot at salvation or doom. Everything about this just speaks to me, and it sounds so perfect. I can't wait to get my hands on this and read it. There's obviously more to the synopsis, and if you'd like to read it, go ahead and do so. I don't know anything about the author. I think this is a debut, and it's supposed to come out on September 1st. And last, but oh boy, is it not least at all, we have the book that I've been waiting for years now, that I am so excited to read and so scared to read, I can't even begin to explain to you. The book goes by the name Nights of Wind and Truth by Brandon Sanderson and is the 5th book in the Stormlight Archive, which is supposed to close the first cycle of the Stormlight Archive. It's supposed to come out in November. There is no exact date to my knowledge yet, but I'm almost 100% sure that it's gonna come out in November because Brandon Sanderson is one of the most prolific writers and he is notorious for putting out a lot of books and sticking to his deadlines. Now, the Stormlight Archive is one of my favorite series, and these books have gotten me through some of the most difficult moments of my life, if not the most difficult moments. They feature one of the most amazing fantasy worlds out there and some of my most favorite characters ever. I swear to God, I feel like I know these people like they're my friends, and I know that sounds insanely lame, but it's a fact. And so knowing how Brandon Sanderson ends series and how attached I am to these characters, I am insanely afraid to read this book, and at the same time can't wait to get my hands on it. This is probably the book that I have been anticipating the most in my life, barring some other books that we shall not speak of right now, but I don't think I have ever been at this stage of expectation for a book ever. So November 2024 is gonna be an amazing month, and I'm either gonna cry or be super happy, or most likely both. So yeah, I am so excited about this book. I can't wait for it. I think about it at least 2-3 times a week. And that concludes the list of my 11 most anticipated releases for 2024. Please let me know what you're excited for 2024. Did any of these books catch your attention? Are there any books you think I should have put on this list or that I might have missed and I might actually enjoy? Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing day, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!